Hello, everybody, and welcome back to that Milan podcast. Listen, I don't know. I don't know what to say. It happened.
What an
I
intro.
didn't expect it to happen. You didn't expect it to happen. Nobody did. I think. Well, actually, me, Marco, our good friend, he did. He did say it. He thought Milan would win this. It was plausible. It was a plausible take. I mean, Inter just on fumes. Milan with this new formation, and it was kind of something that you alluded to in the Atalanta game where there were patches of like, you know what? Milan weren't that bad. They had chances in the second half. They did lose, and rightfully so, but there was like signs, there was like a pulse there in regards to it. Again, by no means a great performance by Milan. Is not what I'm getting at, but just to have kind of footprints of what would happen. And listen, this isn't Inter's full 11. This isn't their best of teams, but Milan are ninth. Milan had won or not lost the previous four derbies in this.
Mm.
Inter are playing for a treble, and by all accounts, for the most part, there was a lot of key players in there for Inter to start. I know they subbed on some other key guys later, but Milan beat Inter 3-0 in the second leg of a Coppa Italia final against a treble fighting Inter, in which a year and after the fact that they lost six straight derbies, one of which in Inter winning the 20th Scudetto to get their second star on our heads. And if you told anybody that last year that Milan would be undefeated in five derbies and beat
Mhm.
Inter 3-0 in Matt, and I saw a lot of people also saying this, the most dominant derby win for Milan since I believe you were at San Siro.
I
I
was
could be.
there. Ali was there, I think. Right. I know some of the Sempre Milan guys were there. This is
So
2016.
in 2016, correct,
Yeah.
in which our good friend Alex scored. I like to me, first half was very back and forth. Inter had their opportunities, but man, that second half, there was a clear-cut better team. Really was. And I gotta say, I'm stunned by it. So just your overall initial reactions. There's multiple heroes within this one. Milan are in the Coppa Italia final for the first time since 2018, St. Angelo.
A top performance. I mean, I think especially in the second half. The first half I thought Inter were um the better side. I
Yeah,
don't want to I want to split this thing up into two because I thought it was a
go
tale of
for it.
two halves. And I thought that Inter were the better side in the first half. Milan just kind of struck with a little bit of great play in the final third. It was Fofana switching the ball over to Jimenez. Jimenez, great cross. And Jovic in the perfect area. Great header. Wanted it more. And beat Martinez for the goal. And I think that
Yeah.
was the one goal that opened it up for Milan. And I think it also kind of, not saying it was something that in that moment defeated Inter, but I felt like because they were controlling the first half,
Correct.
and this is something we touched on in our preview episode with Alex, where it was okay, Inter are going to control, then they'll pick their spots in the second half, and maybe they'll win a tight game, and they don't have to use all their resources, right? Because they rested Hakan, they rested Acerbi, they rested
Yeah.
Solmo, they rested a lot of their key guys that you would consider to be the focal points down the stretch, right? In the more crucial games. But once Milan got that goal through Jovic, I'm watching this game. I'm like, all right, in one-off game derby, people always say you throw form out the window, and to an extent with this Milan team, I think that's pretty valid because throw form out the window, sandwiched in between a lot of the unbeaten results they've had against Inter in the past five encounters. They've like dropped points or
Yeah.
underwhelmed or whatever. But then for whatever reason, they come up against Inter and they seem to rise to the occasion, bring a little bit more. They're a little bit more aggressive into the 50-50 balls. They want it more in the air, like Jovic, pouncing on the ball for the second goal in the box, right? Just kind of being in the right place at the right time and just wanting it more. And I think the second half showed that when Milan came out very aggressive and assertive in the second half to kind of say, okay, we're in the driver's seat. We have the lead. Inter
Yeah.
now have to come out of their shell. They can't play this sort of reserved approach game where they can rest their guys and maybe strike gold once, get the goal, and get out of here. They have to come and bring their guys on. And they brought on Hakan. They brought on some of their key players to hopefully reverse this
Relatively
thing.
early, too.
Even when those guys came on, Milan were better. Like the second half, they were even better than what we saw. So
Just yeah.
you look at the tale of two halves, and I think it's another example of this Milan team being so frustrating. Like you want to strangle them because you see how great they play in the second half and how much they dominated and played Inter off the pitch. Being the away team, I know it's the same stadium, but the way they played in the second half and the way they dominated that game, the final third, showing balance defensively, they were really good. I thought Gabbia was strong in this game as well. We'll go deep dive
Yes.
into some of the players,
Yeah.
but the way they played in that second half, you're like, they have it in them. This team
Yeah.
has quality. They're not a team that's indicative of their positioning in the table and them falling out and crashing out of the Champions League. This is a much better team than what we've seen through large chunks of this season, bar the one-off result here and there. So a great result, and we're headed to a final. Which if you told any Milan fan, hey, you might win 2 domestic cups this year, you'll take that. With everything else, maybe, but 2 cups domestically, that would be a pretty sweet season in that sense.
Yeah, just the overall thing. I mean, the substitutes is like the funniest thing. There were 4 substitutes made in the 53rd minute, 54th
Mm-hmm.
minute. That's a lot of
They
time in the
understood,
second
like,
half.
we
There
have
was
to book
plenty
it.
of time. I know they were down 2-0, but we've seen games flip on their head, especially
Yeah.
in derbies within 5 to 10 minutes. You know, for a while when Milan were losing 6 straight, I was just sort of like, this whole derby thing of like, just it being its own game is bullshit, right? Like I was like, that's dead. That narrative is gone. Now that's fully back on. That's like back, like Undertaker gif. He's back alive. Like this is incredible. Like I'm sorry. Like, this is one of the most bizarre seasons. This is actually probably the most bizarre season as a Milan fan. I would say. Um, Definitely up there in top 5 most frustrating, probably top 3, because of the talent, as you mentioned, not really reflective of that. But the ability to win a second cup final would just be something immense. We'll get to that side of it soon enough. But yeah, I mean, just the performance, and I had mentioned uh, during the preview podcast in which, when Milan scored that goal with Reijnders in that
Mhm.
last Serie A match, the last time these two faced off, Inter started off that one great. And I had just in my bones when I saw Lautaro try to outside foot that one shot when he could
Yeah.
just easily have slotted that in. To me, I was just like, oh no, Inter are not what like they hope they are for today. Because that's just like oversimplifying a tap in goal essentially, or just keep it simple. Try and score the goal. I know he had a fantastic finish against Bayern. I understand that worked for him. There was too much space and time, Matt, in the box for him to not attempt a normal shot. And we got vintage Magnan for this game. I
Yep.
thought he was phenomenal. The back three, listen, there was space quite often for Inter on counterattacks where they were pushing. Milan closed the gap phenomenally. I thought maybe a couple chances, as you mentioned, in that first half where Inter definitely had some opportunity to score. There was never actually anything like super threatening that was like, oh my God, like we're getting sliced and diced right now. Like this is
Mhm.
Milan doesn't really have a chance. I thought there was stability there. A couple of times where Jimenez was showing his youth, but his assist on that first goal was fantastic. Perfectly lofted ball. Um, Great job by Milan winning that back, and Jovic with the finish. I think Jovic in this overall conversation here really just needs to be lauded for this sort of professionalism that you see at the end of the day. Whether or not I thought it was laughable to give him the number 9 shirt, I'm never gonna like fray away from that take. But it's all really irrelevant because I've seen really bad players have that number 9. And guess what? Like I mentioned, like Alex had mentioned, like you had
Mhm.
mentioned, it's not legacy defining because legacy is a little bit of a bigger word, but it's a career defining performance at Milan. Like Antonio Donnarumma had a career
Mhm.
defining match against Inter in Coppa Italia, where sure he's not this all-time great player, but he's gonna be remembered for a very long time. Luka Jovic in this brace of a performance against Inter to send Milan to a cup final. it matters. This is why you play the game. This is where you get these moments as a player, even when times are not great, that you're finishing a fantastic header, as you mentioned, right place, right time on the second goal. Where it looked
Instinctual.
it really looked bizarre in that one from the angle in which we had Teo sent in a threatening ball. Good job by him. He's put together some really fine performances this month. The change in formation seems to have helped him out, even though it's very late in the season for him. But you still have to give him credit where it's due. Someone like Jovic performing like this, it just makes you feel good about things, because if you're able to have professionals within your squad to have this sort of patience, and where his career has been, let alone his time at Milan, where he was at Frankfurt, that big move to Madrid, moving around, bouncing like this, to
Mhm.
stay ready and produce. I mean, hats off to Luka Jovic. Just your overall thoughts on that sort of performance. Rarely see players stay battle tested like this. You really just have to commend him for keeping a headstrong attitude here.
Yeah, I think, look, Luka Jovic, his professionalism, his preparation, and readiness for that call from Sergio Conceição should be definitely applauded. And I know people might say that, that should be the minimum, right? You're playing for Milan. Like, you should train hard. You should be
Right.
ready to get your name called on any given match day, regardless of where you are in the pecking order, whether you're playing a lot lately, whether your minutes are coming predominantly off the bench or in meaningless games, whatever the case may be. This was a player that felt like he was probably going to leave in January. There were
Yes.
potential opportunities for him to leave. He stayed. They bring in Santiago Jimenez. They kind of reinsert Tammy Abraham to play a more prominent role. So if you're Luka Jovic at the time of the Santiago Jimenez purchase in January, you're thinking,
Yeah.
where are my minutes going to come from? Even if
Exactly.
Francesco Camardo's getting more minutes than me, right? And you throw everything in totality, you're like, okay, like Jovic is going to kind of be one of those players that kind of drifts off into the shadows, goes into the summer, and he moves for a nominal fee somewhere.
Like
And
Divock Origi into
it
the
still
shadow
can happen.
realm.
But I think Luka Jovic is a prime example of how footballers should carry themselves. Because not every player is going to be a star. Not every player is going to start every game. Not every player is going to have everything go their way. Injuries occur, changing of the guard, changing of coaches, changing of system, players for whatever reason not being kind of in the equation. And Luka Jovic, the past handful of games, has stepped up. And I also want to commend Sergio for that, because I
Yeah.
think it's easy for him to be like, well, Santiago's the guy we bought. We're going to play him. We're going to play the most expensive guys, the guys that, we deem to be, probably at the heart of the project going forward, regardless of how the season, finishes. But he has been firm in saying, I've liked what I've seen from Luka Jovic in training. I liked what I've seen from Tammy Abraham. I'm going to play the guys that I think give me the best opportunity to win and produce on a given match day. So I think that Luka Jovic has carried himself quite well. You're not hearing things in the media. You're not hearing him and his agent speaking on certain things and causing an issue. Quietly in the shadows, training hard, doing
Yeah.
his job, waiting for his name to be called. And it's come really since the latter part of March, and now he's playing a crucial role. And I think that, again, we touched on this in our previous episode and episodes where, we're still trying to feel out a lot of things the rest of the way. We're not in top four. We're not going to see the Scudetto. Those things we're not going to see. We're not going to be able to touch those. But there are still things that are at stake, things that we still need to monitor, and things we still need to kind of assess with this current group. Is the jury out on Pavlovic, Fofana, some of these other players? There's a lot of players within this team that are going to stay, that more or less
Yeah.
have their roles carved out. But then there's other players that, with that whatever opportunity they're afforded, have the opportunity to change their fortunes, have the opportunity to change the narrative about their career at Milan and their status at Milan. And I think Luka Jovic is a prime example of that, because there's a reason why he's playing quite a bit. There's a reason why Tammy Abraham is playing quite a bit. It wouldn't surprise me, and I tweeted this out like about a week or two ago, that I think one of the two is going to stay. And if I had to guess between Tammy and Jovic, if I had to say, I think it probably would be Jovic. And the reason why I say this is because Tammy's wages. I think Jovic is a little bit more of a friendlier deal.
I think Tammy's going to take a pay cut. Go ahead, but I agree
If
with
he takes a
you.
pay cut, I'm kind of warming up to the idea of keeping them all and just having the depth, because I think if you have Santiago, Jovic, Abraham, and Camarda sprinkled in, I think
I
that's
think it likely matters what this SD wants for
exactly. We
Camarda.
really don't
I
know. There's a
think
lot to say, and I
Camarda,
don't want to flip the script too
of
much
course,
and
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
I
give
get you. I get you.
backstep here, but I think that the leadership, the things that I've seen from Jovic and Tammy in a difficult stage where we're not playing well, and just the way they're speaking, just the way they're carrying themselves, I
Yeah.
think that's important. I think big picture, people have to look at it that way. People can say, well, Mike Maignan, you probably shouldn't pay him this much money, but I'm like, I think the leadership is huge with Mike Maignan,
I
and his
like I
play has been really good and reflective of how prominent he is. So
I
I
think
think that
overall this year
there's
better.
there's conversations to be had the rest of the way. That's how I think people have to look at this and judge certain players specifically like Jovic, because I think this is a player that's had quality. You saw last year where he came off the bench in a lot of games. He did
He
produce,
saved Pioli's ass so many times
and
last
he
year.
and
Him and
he
Okafor.
and this is a player that was very, very good at Frankfurt. And there's a like you don't just get a move to Real Madrid. I don't think you all of a sudden just completely lose
Sure.
quality. I think it's a confidence thing. I think there's a lot of things that kind of bake into a player's regression and him not maybe delivering on expectations. But I
Mhm.
think it's great to see a guy like Luka Jovic. And the final point on this, for me at least, is Luka Jovic is like another player that's like an unsung hero this year against Inter, right? I think we tend to latch on to the stars to carry us in big games like this. And I think to a degree, absolutely they have. Like Mike Maignan
Mhm.
making a great save. We've had moments of other players stepping up, like Reijnders scoring goals in the draw, the 1-1 game. But the first game, Matteo Gabbia getting the winner. Games like this, Luka Jovic, an outcast, getting a brace against Inter. Like guys
Mhm.
that you don't really expect to have this sort of Derby legacy imprinted in them, and for the club, they're getting those moments, which I think is also what makes the sport so special, because it can be anybody on any given match day, and you just got to be ready for the moment.
Yeah, we've seen Ezekiel Scalotto score in a
Yeah.
derby. That was one of the more
Tammy
devastating feelings.
Abraham too in the Super Cup, right? Like
Yeah,
it's not
yeah. I mean,
Rafa,
I
it's
think just real quick on the striker situation thing, all depends on Camarda, but and I guess the new manager and the sporting director and what the plan is.
yeah,
But don't be surprised if Camarda goes out to develop further. Again, he gets a brace over the weekend. He's physically looking different. I don't know if a lot of people have noticed.
yeah.
He's really changing up that physical prowess of his. Um, it really depends on this Roma, Salamakers, Tammy Abraham situation. But don't be surprised, guys, if Milan do a thing where hey, we actually don't have to spend money in one area for strikers because we could just keep Jovic because we have the option to extend him one more year. And we could just get Tammy Abraham in a straight swap for a player. And that's a striker that we could eventually flip. Same could go for Santi. That we have options for three relatively proven professional strikers where we don't have to spend money in that area and just focus on reinforcing the defensive and midfield areas. And again, I'm not saying I have faith in any of this. I'm just saying what potentially the logic, right? Logic is a big word for these guys, is what they'll try to be using for next season. Again, it'll be interesting, fascinating. I just want to speak on a couple more players before we move on to Mr. Reijnders there. Again, I thought very solid performance from the back three players here. Even Chow giving a shout out to him when he had to come on. When it appeared, I guess it was Gabia had a head injury, correct?
I think
Um,
his neck, like he
there
went
were
back
yeah,
for a
there were
header or
there
something
was
in his neck.
I couldn't hear the commentary at work because I was at work, but again with Tamori there as well.
Mm.
I thought Tamori had a really solid performance. Again, it's interesting. There's a few matches left in this season. I think it's really about performances and obviously results and how Milan do. I think some players, with the way this management is and how fickle they could be, some players could be saving their jobs. Um, I thought Reijnders put in a good display. Certain times there was poor contributions. I thought this was one of the worst Pulisic games. I thought him and Rafa were poor in general. Even though Rafa was poor, he still manages to get
Which
a
is crazy
assist.
because you score 3 goals and your 2 best players, arguably,
Yeah,
like, at least best attacking players,
of course,
don't
yeah.
have good performances.
Outside of Reijnders, yeah, your two of your 3 outfield players did not play that great. Rafa was it was a bad first half. It was just he was
Yeah.
slipping everywhere. Bisek was dominating that matchup. I had highlighted that as well. What did you think of this Fofana performance? I think there was moments again in pockets for large parts where he's just incredibly frustrating, shooting the ball up the pitch, not really completing that many passes, but he just does look more lively and generally better in this formation than he has in the entire year. Honestly, it's a poor season from him. I don't think he was that good against Atalanta if he was good at all. I thought this was a solid performance by him. I'm just curious on your gauge and what you thought he did in this one, and then we'll move on to TG.
I think this performance from Fofana paints a picture for me that leads me to think that the season hasn't been that great for him. I think, given the expectation, given how heavily we were pursuing him and for how long we were doing it last summer. But I think it kind of gives me a little bit of hope that with maybe some extra coverage, another defensive player in that midfield three, if we do play midfield three with whoever the coach is, I think that it can really afford him that opportunity to be that more of a box to box guy. I think when he came to Milan, I think myself included, I had a little more of an expectation that he would be more on the scale of a defensive player, like not Kessie, not like a full fledged
Yeah,
DM, but someone that we're like, okay, like he's not like the optimal guy that you want to play at this role.
yeah.
But I think he's got a lot of defensive qualities, traits, and characteristics in the per 90 stats that I like to add into my
Mhm.
sort of assessment for players that gave you the inclination that he would be someone that can fill that void that has been left since Tonali and Kessie left and
Mm,
afford Tijani Reinders the opportunity to get forward and get more goals, which truthfully he has, right? Maybe on his own accord, maybe through the variations of systems we've played. But I think that the way Fofana has played in some games, I think that people can be harsh and they can be critical, and I think that's
yeah,
totally fair and valid because his performances haven't met the standard we need and the expectations we were having.
for sure.
But I think this is again a prime example of like, hey guys, it's a 25, 26-year-old player that plays for France. He's a quality player. I think people need to kind of have an understanding and be a little bit more objective and honest in certain things and remove some emotion when they're judging players. Because I think it's easy to watch a stretch of games from Fofana this year and think, man, this is the guy we were going after. We got to get rid of him. We need to get a replacement. He's not good enough. But to take everything in totality and the variables for which this season has created so much frustration, you almost look at it and think he is one of those players I circled right in red. And I think, okay, another season, year two, Fofana is going to be a very, very different player than what we've seen this year.
Yeah, again, just I'm not making excuses for him. I think all your points are correct to an extent. It's just this future is so foggy with this club and
Yeah.
what managers coming in, what formation they're going to play. Are they going to utilize players to their exact levels? I just like to remind some people, and again, I'm not here to defend Conceição. I'm not here to say that Conceição should stay, but I will say Stefano Pioli got off to a horrible start with Milan, made a formation change, and it saved his entire career. His career as a
He made a
manager.
career off that. Yeah.
It was his legacy
Yeah.
was defined by it. I'm not saying this is the case here with Conceição with this switch. I'm not defending it because he took forever to do it. Um, it takes a while. He wasn't afforded certain things under his control. He did a really bad job with, and it's probably why he's going to lose his job at Milan. But there are some people having the opinion that he should stay. I am not ready to say any of that. With that, I mean, continuing to dominate, truthfully, most goals by a midfielder in the top 5 leagues this season. Tijani Reijnders scored his 15th goal in all competitions this year. He is Milan's leading scorer for this entire season. I'm going to have to look back at all the numbers, but I think it's either Pulisic or Leao are the only other ones that are sneaking up on him. To me, this is just an incredible difference in his offensive play in comparison to last year. Our friend Badir always likes to highlight how much year over year Reijnders has grown in terms of last year with his finishing ability to this one. Um, yeah, they count on FOTMob. Don't be fooled. They count the Berlusconi Trophy as a goal, so that's where the 15 is instead of 16. I mean, yeah, listen, like this is just a player who put himself in the correct position, had fantastic body feints within this one, just overall play, forget the goal contribution in itself. Reijnders, at this rate in the season, he's been Milan's best player. I think there was a conversation with him, Pulisic, Leao, Magnan. It was really those four. Reijnders has separated himself, in
I
my
agree.
opinion. I think in the biggest of matches this year, he's scored in multiple derbies. He was great against Real Madrid.
Yeah.
He's been most consistent. Had a rough start in 2025, not denying that. But then you could point the finger at every other player. So,
Yeah.
like, it necessarily is negated at that point. Overall, from season start up until this point, Tijani Reijnders has been Milan's best player for 2024, 2025. And I have to say that extension is robbery. We robbed him. He's underpaid. Simple as. And I think it would be a disgrace for Milan to sell off this sort of player. Again, I'm just saying that because if we look at it from the perspective and angle of this is Milan's worst season in a while, and they're possibly getting 2 trophies,
Yeah.
that means you have something to build off of. Again, please recognize this, management. I'm begging you. Just understand the gravity of the situation and what you have here. Again, it's on life support. I'm talking about 1 beat per minute with their heart right now. They're very close to the grave. But listen, there's something there. Reijnders is incredible. And hopefully he finishes out the season getting us another trophy. He's played a huge part into getting Milan into competitive matches and being one of the better players. Your thoughts just on finishing off Inter here with that third goal. It's just so well deserved. The run he makes here is a nice assist by Leao, but Reijnders' finishes everything within this. This is just a player that is become even better than we all thought he could be.
Yeah, I mean, I think coming into the season, I thought that was a huge talking point surrounding Tijani Reijnders, right? Because last year he showed glimpses of all he can offer in the midfield, his technical ability, driving the ball forward, carrying, creating chances. But I think there was a lot left to be desired when it came to his finishing, his final third contribution, what he does in that crucial part of the field that Milan were sorely missing, right? They leaned too heavily on Rafa. They leaned too heavily on Pulisic. They needed another player or two to contribute goals, be a scorer, be a threat, make those late runs into the box from the midfield, right? Teams that we've seen thrive in Serie A and world football for that matter, but we're predominantly a Serie A Milan podcast.
Of course, yeah.
You look at what he does as a player, his movement, his work rate, a player that basically any outfield player that Milan has, he covers the most ground. I don't have the stats in front of me, but every single time I would see, he would always cover the most ground. He would always run the most for Milan, right? Yeah. You looked at it, you're like, there's no way this guy should be scoring 2 to 3 goals a year in Serie A.
Yeah.
Like there's just simply too much in this player quality-wise for him to not be someone that's 7 to 10 goals, maybe even more, in a more cohesive, functioning team. And I said this before the season started. I think it was while watching a lot of these preseason games, and obviously a lot's changed since then because Milan played really well in the preseason under Fonseca, and he didn't last half the season. But I said, and I was trying to find the tweet, I was looking at Tijani, I was like, there's simply too much quality here and too much ability for him to not be able to be a more steady, more reliable guy in the final third and get more goals this year. And we've seen it. I didn't expect him to get 15 goals.
No, yeah.
I thought that if he doubled his output from last year, that's a big improvement because he offers a lot of other things that don't show on the stat sheet. But this is a player that, it's easy to appreciate, easy to admire when you do everything he does from a technical standpoint, creativity standpoint, the way we function in a lot of the good performances we've had, and how crucial he is to that, you also learn to appreciate more the goals. Like, wow, this guy can do both. This guy is one of the more versatile, more well-rounded midfielders in Europe this season. Hands down. The numbers show it. You can look at Milan's positioning in the table, and people might do that just to kind of diminish what he's accomplished this year. But this isn't a penalty taker. This isn't a guy that is really playing a consistent number 10 role. Formation changes have also asked him to do a lot on the defensive side, have also asked him to drop back a lot and play in a more defensive double pivot role. So for him to have the goal contributions he's had while juggling a lot when it comes to formations, when it comes to role, responsibility,
playing a lot,
he's playing a ton and showing and posting every single game and playing pretty much 90 minutes every single game. I think that this player, in my opinion, he's worth at least 80 million. In this market, he's worth at least 80 million, in my opinion. In my opinion. With age,
listen,
with where he's at in his
we know
career.
how it goes. Serie A clubs that have really valuable players that Premier League clubs want, pay up. Straight up, like
If Cambiaso was getting potential offers for 65 million.
Everyone watching is gonna laugh because we both just said Cambiaso at the same time. Cambiaso is getting evaluated for 65 million. Done nothing. He's only a year or two younger than Reijnders. Reijnders is 26. Remember they all laughed and said that Reijnders coming. I think I might have banned him from the channel. But where's the guy who said that coming from the Dutch league, you're not a productive player? Our top scorer is from the Dutch league, and he's a midfielder. So keep talking, I guess, right? Just phenomenal season. Just really great. We're likely to face Bologna in the final. Bologna face off against Empoli today in the second leg. I mean, listen, if Empoli come back down from 3-0, I have no idea what to think. All I know is that Lorenzo Colombo is definitely scoring in that final. But listen, Bologna is going to be really tough. Milan play them once again in Serie A. That one will be at home. They lost that makeup game. Really unlucky loss first go around. Vinny Italiano, phenomenal manager. I think he's going to be one of those guys that if Conceição leaves, he's one of the candidates for Milan. So it would be a very peculiar and interesting situation for Conceição going up against a guy like that. Bologna are going to be difficult. Italiano is due, as they say, to win a cup final. This one will be in Rome. So I think that just Milan getting to their first Coppa Italia final since 2018. They obviously lost that one. They haven't won it in 20 years. They've won it one time since 1990. They've won it one time in our lifetimes, meaning you and I, Matt. So at the end of the day, a trophy is a trophy, and I think anybody should be rooting for a victory in it. I don't think people should feel negative heading into it because a one-off game, we've seen what just happened. Milan have the quality to beat anybody. They do. They just straight up do. It's a bizarre team, but when you get to a cup final, Milan and their players have more experience in those moments than a lot of the Bologna players. We saw what happened when Bologna was in the brightest of lights this season, right? They folded. They were really bad. Bologna had a rough first half of the year, especially in the Champions League. So, listen, man, I'm supporting. I'm backing this team no matter what. Milan have a great chance to win their first Coppa Italia in 20 years. Yeah, you tell me. What are the sentiments? I mean, it's awesome. Milan are in a cup final. Lost season, but they're there. They have a chance to win a second trophy, and that's what we play for.
Absolutely. And, I tweeted this out and it got a lot of traction. But if you couldn't put your agenda aside and your disdain and disliking for management ownership and how things have played out this year under them, because you wanted to kind of send a message and you were willing to send a message in the form of Milan not being able to advance to potentially win a trophy past Inter, go support another team. I don't care whether you like management or not or disagree with the direction of the club. Me and Martino have said at length plenty of times, we don't like what management's doing. We don't like what ownership's doing. We don't like how they've handled many things. So I'm going to once again reiterate that point in that position before I make this comment.
Yeah.
Losing doesn't correct problems. In what realm does more suffering, more disappointment, more frustration
Yeah.
just make things infinitely better for Milan? Why would you want
Doesn't.
to knock Milan down to prop up Inter, some of these other teams that would be competing
Why?
for this
Yeah,
trophy?
like, why?
Makes
What is it?
zero
What good
sense.
does it do?
Makes zero
Yeah.
sense. We all understand the priority for this club to get back to where it wants to be is competing for Champions League, Scudetto. That's been well established. We all understand there's priorities, right? When you look at the trophies that Milan had available to them this year, Champions League, Serie A, Super Cup, Coppa Italia. You'd put Super Cup probably last.
Yeah,
Coppa
definitely.
Italia would fall right underneath Serie A, and
Mhm.
then Champions League would be at the top.
Yeah.
That's all well established. But this idea that, well, we got nothing to play for, we don't want to go to the Europa League, so let's punt on this because it would be in our best interest to not play in the Europa League next year. Okay, so let me get this straight.
It's not even completely
This
true.
Inter team that's dominated us for 6 consecutive derbies coming into the season. We've played them really well. We've had difficulties the entire year. Your solution, or the solution of many, in the eyes of many, is to, yeah, but we don't want to be in the Europa League. We don't want to win this competition. We should be going for the Scudetto. Just because we should be going for the Scudetto, which we literally can't get this year, doesn't
Yeah.
mean we should punt on everything else. I've
Agree, yeah.
always been a firm believer in when you have a big club mentality, big club culture, and big club legacy like Milan, like Inter, like Real Madrid, a lot of the other clubs, usual suspects,
Mhm.
you're going to prioritize certain competitions over the other. But make no mistake about it. You have a trophy there to be won, you go and win it. However you want to approach it is entirely up to you. But this idea that, well, it's the Coppa Italia, who really cares? This is a club that's built a legacy, a culture over 125 years of trophies. Go to Casa Milan. I encourage you, if you can, look at all the trophies there. Look at all the prestige. Look at all the Ballon d'Or winners.
I was there, it's nice.
You come with that mentality that you just don't really care to win this trophy, go support another team. Go support another team. I encourage you to go to support another team. If we can
Yeah.
win a trophy and the Coppa Italia that we haven't won in decades, as Martino just mentioned, decades. A team like Milan not winning a cup, a Coppa Italia. Not one of that, not the Super Cup, which kind of is a different format, and you can kind of find
It's
your way
different.
into that.
They've won it like 3 times, 4
Correct.
times since, yeah.
A Coppa Italia. I want to win this. It's been a bad season. Make no mistake about it. And I know Matteo and I know some other people have said, well, if they win the Coppa Italia and they got the 2 trophies this year and they somehow make it to the Europa League, you can't really consider the season a failure. That's really not the conversation I'm having.
Yeah,
There's a trophy there. There's a trophy there.
Yeah.
Milan have every right and every reason to go and win that in a difficult season and give their fans some sort of hope that in one of Milan's worst seasons in decades, they come out of it with 2 trophies.
Yeah.
That's not that bad.
No. There's and again, the term silver lining matters, right? There's
course.
positives in the darkness, and this would be one of them. That's why I had such strong sentiments, and this isn't a shot at anybody that was saying this, and that's why I prefaced it in my tweet prior to the match, and I said it last podcast.
Yeah.
Because I brought it up to like Alex, and Alex was like saying the same thing. Alex is as a neutral, or sorry, not even neutral, as a rival fan, gave the most poignant point that he could have made. Guys, them missing out on this stuff like doesn't matter. First of all, book to Super Copa. Finances matter. You guys are getting upset that like ownership is you want their pockets to hurt. Their pockets hurt. That means Milan hurts.
Yeah.
I don't want that. That's self-harm. I don't want it. That doesn't mean that they're good. Their pockets are still going to hurt because they're missing the Champions League.
Yeah.
That shit matters. Like they know that. They know that it impacts them. They're not able to build the stadium that they want to build. They know that they have financial issues from that standpoint. But at the same time, playing in Europa League isn't the most prestigious of competitions, but it brings in money to help stabilize the situation. Because guess what? You keep losing money, you keep missing out on competitions. Milan don't make it anywhere. They don't win anything. Then you have nothing at all. You have nothing to hang your hat on. You have nothing to offer for players to come over here. You can't afford certain players anymore. It's a downward spiral into what happened into the Banta era. You don't want that. You never want to root for that. I'm sorry, that's just a ridiculous concept just because you dislike ownership like that. I just want them to sell. That's it. I don't want them to be here anymore. I'm not going to actively root against my team. Like, that's the dumbest shit
I
ever.
never
I'm
understood that.
sorry. I think that's awful. And I'm not saying people are wrong in their sentiments to like from the angle in which that they don't want ownership here anymore because they want them to suffer. Ownership is suffering. Like let's I'm not here to sympathize with them. I'm not. What I'm telling you is the fans don't like them. Okay? They've fielded a terrible team. They've put together a horrible environment. They're under duress and fire every single match that they're having to answer these things. This, whether it's management, whether it's Jerry. Jerry can go and hide like a coward. We all know that. But they're facing the music. Like they have, like they have to deal with it at the end of the day. It's not like they're not dealing with it at all. They're not dealing with it in the way that we want, where we're very confrontational fans, where we want messages and them to like write an open letter like it's the King's speech and they have to address everybody. Like that's not going to happen. But again, this is Milan. We're facing Inter. If you wanted to lose against Inter, I'm not here to always tell how fans should root for their team. Shame on you, quite honestly. Shame on you for that. Because are you even a Milan fan at that point? Milan, above all, is wanting the team to succeed, regardless of owner, regardless of player. It's the badge. We talk about it all the time. You want to critique players because they play for the name on the back and not the crest on the front? Isn't the same concept applied here? Isn't it Milan above all? Isn't it club above all, success above all? You guys are not going to remember your feelings and disdain for the large part against this ownership and management. What you're going to remember is winning a trophy years from now and beating Inter like this. Do you even remember or care about the management, how dumb shit was under Leonardo when we beat Inter in that Coppa Italia when Antonio Donnarumma stepped in? No, we remember the performances and what happened on the pitch all the time. That's all we remember.
Or Montella as the coach in the Super
Montella with the Super Coppa. Everybody was happy with the Super Coppa. Like, please, like,
no, I'm talking about the one in 2017.
Yeah, 2016. Yes, the 2016 Super Coppa. Yeah, like with the shootout. Yeah, I remember it. Donnarumma. That was a great moment. It was when he started.
Bonaventura, Pasalic, like
Bonaventura scored the lone goal to send that to extra time, and then penalties. For me, I don't understand how fans want to go about this. Like, guys,
also too, Martino, I think it's pretty ironic and backwards thinking where people are looking at the Coppa Italia discrediting and its legitimacy and saying, well, they think so little of the Coppa Italia that they think if we lose this game, suddenly ownership is going to be like, we lost the Coppa Italia, we got to sell. Think about it. Yeah. Like, if you think so little of the competition that you're playing in, like if you're looking at this match and thinking, well, if we lose to Inter, maybe ownership will sell because it's another team.
100%.
It really doesn't make much sense. If you want to put that sort of logic and thinking into, hey, we're 20-something points off the Scudetto, we embarrassingly crashed out of the Champions League, fine. Yeah. But for a competition many people think so little of, you think that's all of a sudden going to be the light bulb in the head moment where they're like, we should sell. We lost in the Coppa Italia. We should sell now.
They don't understand the finances. Like, no disrespect to anybody. I don't think a lot of you understand what the finances are here. And Alex, again, made the other point to reiterate it because you guys have to it's not you guys, every listener, but it's just a general comment towards the fans of people who think that, oh, yeah, well, at the end of the day, like he's going to sell because he isn't happy and we're angry and we have pitchforks. Guys, enough. They don't give a fuck about any of you. They don't give a fuck about me. They don't care about any of us and our sentiments. They have dollars. They have money. They have investors that they have to report back to on where's the club making money? How's my investment doing?
Yeah.
Oh, we couldn't build that stadium? Well, that's a loss of a lot of capital that we injected into the club in hopes to build the stadium. We don't have that. Oh, we missed out on the Champions League? Oh, that's not great. What does that do? That hurts Milan's valuation, I think, Matt. And with Milan's valuation, what does that also mean? They're not worth as much. Why am I selling something when it's not worth as much? What they're eventually going to end up doing and attempt to do before they preemptively probably have to cut their losses because no one has faith for them to turn it around, right? Perennial Champions League contenders with this management, whatever. We get that, right? What they're going to have to end up doing is waiting for a moment in time to sell that. But they're still going to attempt to keep growing the record revenues and profits that they had just told everybody that they had. Why? Because they want to sell the club for more money, because that's what private equity
partnerships, the commercial opportunities, the
that's what they
Fortnite
want to do.
collaboration,
That's why
whatever
they bought
people
the club
think
in the
about
first
it,
place.
whatever people's opinions of that, the truth of the matter is this: if you're not considering the weight of the financial side, then I think you have such an archaic, outdated mindset of how this sport is going.
It's a club, an asset worth over $1 billion. Probably what they're hoping to valuate at $2 billion. And I've talked to people who are higher up in executives at this club or who have worked at the club and mentioned this to me. I literally know it firsthand, guys. Like, I'm not here to lie about it. I don't gain anything by it. You think I want to read this shit? You know how annoying and exhausting it is? 14,000 people on Twitter. You know how many of them are dumb and annoying in my ear and buzzing like a fucking gnat? It's ridiculous. Speaking of annoying, we have to wake up 6:30 in the morning on Sunday. We play Venezia. This was one of our better performances earlier in the season. Listen, just get the 3 points. And listen, everybody, honestly, if you're in America, don't get up. Stay in bed. Do yourself a favor. Just do it. Just stay asleep.
That being said, I'll be up because I'm
going to be up. You're going to be up.
Yeah.
Everyone else go to bed.
What about our West Coast people?
West Coast people, dude. I'm getting back from work at like midnight. I'm gonna have to go to bed immediately to get up. I'm gonna get up 6:25 alarm. Smack myself in the face.
6:25 alarm.
Hey man, I have no choice. I got up early enough. I got back very late to record this podcast for this morning, and Santangelo was fantastically flexible about it. But yeah, just to wrap this up kind of quickly, Venezia, they're lowly. Our boy Gianluca Busio just got a last-second equalizer. I guess I believe it was against Cagliari just yesterday as well, or if it wasn't, it was the other day. Listen, for Milan, whatever. I guess. I mean, the teams ahead of them are so far ahead. It's really just Coppa Italia or bust. But in the event that Milan could maybe climb back into a position, 3 points would be nice. Nice to see someone contribute in terms of goals, pat those stats. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have much to say with this one. It was just a fun game. Please score some goals, make it easy, build off of this formation a little bit, get more consistency and chemistry for the final that they're going to be playing for. So, yeah, Milan Venezia, Santangelo, what do you got? And if you want to intertwine a prediction in it, because there isn't much left to say.
So I'm gonna go 3-0.
Okay.
3-0, and I know on one hand people might be thinking, well, Matt, like, how could you be optimistic? Like, we've seen this time and time again. They play Inter well, and the next match they drop a stinker. I've been pretty, like, not negative, but I think just kind of like a realist in a lot of my predictions, in that I'm mostly like not trying to give too much credit and play too much into the moment that we just beat Inter. Of course, we're going to beat Venezia. They stink. It's different. Like, Venezia is going to play a different game. Maybe Venezia plays. They know their fate's decided, I think. I don't think they really have anything to play for. I could be wrong in the table. But,
I got you in a second. Keep going.
It's one of those games where I think Venezia are going to try to play freely because they realize, like, okay, Milan are coming off a high of beating Inter. They're going to the Coppa Italia.
They're 1 point off Lecce in them, so they have relegation.
It's an important game. It's an important game for them, so they're going to come to play. So Milan have to be ready for that. They can't be celebrating too much this victory over Inter. But I think that Milan will get the job done. I think that Conceição found something in this 3-4-3. I know they gave up a goal against Atalanta, but the game against Udinese, the game against Atalanta, even to an extent, and the game against Inter yesterday, I think that this is the most balanced run of games we've had in a while. At least defensively, we look organized. At least when the opposition's kind of trying to get forward, we seem to get numbers behind the ball. We seem to get back into shape and structure. We don't look like we're kind of too disjointed and players are kind of running around scrambling. We look like we have like kind of a plan in what we want to do. So I think 3-0. I mean, I could even go 3-1 just because, again, for the sake of like, hey, like, even though we play well, naturally we're going to give up a goal because that's always seems to be the case with this team. But I'm going to go 3-0. I do feel that, look, whatever happens with this game happens. I mean, the
Yeah.
truth of the matter is this: they're not getting top four. You know, the Coppa Italia is probably their easiest pathway to getting into the Europa League because it would springboard them essentially to fifth because that's the spot that is occupied for the Europa League team out of Italy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you just want to win, guys. I don't think we have nothing to gain. There's no end goal that sees Milan losing and all of a sudden it's better for the future of this project and this club. Let's just win games. Let's finish on a high note. Let's see if we can kind of have more further assessment of certain players that are maybe on the fringe, that maybe we don't really know what their future holds, or maybe we want to see a little bit more from them. I think that there are many players within this team that we kind of know what their fate and destiny is. I think they're going to be gone at the end of the summer. I don't think that's going to change in a game or two. But there are players like Jovic, like Tammy Abraham, like Jimenez, like some of these other players that, you want to see. Is Jimenez a guy that, could start at right back for us next year? Is this the guy that we want to play at right back? In Tammy and Jovic, like, do we have guys that are more dependable that we can say, hey, you know what, Santi, we could take the little bit of the burden off you. We don't need you to be producing 30 goals a year. We can get you that support and some.
And you don't have to, like, 30 million over like 5 years. If you're like a 10 goal a season scorer, like, that's a good ROI.
So I think that there are still some things to kind of take from these last games against Venezia and some of the like. Now, real quick, just kind of throw it back over to you and to leave it open for comments from those that are watching and listening.
Sure thing.
Do you think we see some like pretty severe rotation? Do you think we see guys like Bondo in there? What do you think?
Yeah. I think guys like that have the potential to start. You can see Musa get back into the fold for this one, heavy minutes again. You're talking about not much to play for within Serie A. I think Milan want to probably build off of some of their positives. Maybe Tammy or a player like that gets to start in this.
Or maybe Santi's ready.
Could certainly see a Bondo. I mean, it really just depends on how Conceição wants to juggle this, because I think there's two different ways to look at it. You could want to keep building off of that chemistry that you're starting with this new-ish formation and build off of that, try and kill off the game, and then also like simultaneously try and get more and more rest. Because listen, Bologna are still fighting for top four. Juve just lost. They have some opportunities and matches in which Bologna can take advantage of that. Everything for them is to get back into the Champions League. I think they value, obviously, going to win a trophy is huge for them, but they're going to have to juggle both. And that's something that they've never really done that I could recall in my lifetime. So with that sort of juggling there, I think Milan do something where they pull that off. I think someone like Davide Bartesaghi can get more minutes there. Maybe Terracciano gets some, but I think Bondo is a strong candidate for that. Musa potentially going in for right wing back. And again, Chow, maybe some more minutes. Someone like Gabbia, just get back and rest until you're 100%. Yeah, that's really kind of what I see happening here. I think players like Leao, unless, something is ailing of his that we don't know, gets a break. But yeah, I think Milan are going to come in with a strong-ish 11, try and kill off a match. But truthfully, I think right now everything has to be about winning Coppa Italia and doing the best that you can to, get a win here and then be well rested for that one. So that's kind of where I'm at with everything. You said 3-0. I'll go 4-0 for Milan. I think Pulisic gets back on the score sheet. I think we're going to see Tammy or Jovic, whoever starts as striker, do that. Again, I hope during these final stretches that I understand to an extent. Maybe Conceição wants to try and save his job and not use as many youngsters. attempt to save his job. I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but I think that you could definitely see a situation in which this guy could hopefully play some of the youngsters. I want to see Bartezaghi. I want to see Camarda. I want to see minutes for these players. I want to see them get an opportunity. Maybe not Camarda because Jovic, Tammy, and then Jimenez are in form. Maybe Camarda just plays with the Futuro. There's been a little bit more consistency for him on that end, but I think it is very important to have Camarda up there in the cup final for that. But yeah, I don't really have much left to say regarding that. Do you have anything else before we end?
No, just want to thank everybody for liking, subscribing, commenting, following us on all platforms. It's been obviously a very difficult season, but coming on to discuss off the back of a great performance against Inter and to go to a Coppa Italia final, it gives me some joy, right? It gives me sort of some hope because obviously it's easy to not want to follow any content. It's easy to want to unsubscribe and just not having really of an interest in what's going on the rest of the season because we want to be competing for the top honors, but we have an opportunity to win another trophy. And I think that's a
100%.
very important thing and something that Milan fans should be very happy about, regardless of how everything has played out prior to this. So just thank you guys for those that have consistently supported, liked, subscribed, and all that good stuff, regardless of how the results have gone this year. We truly do appreciate it. And obviously, you see me and Martino, the flexibility, trying to just kind of fit podcasts and give you guys still content, help engage with you guys and sort of create that community further. That's why we're here, good, bad, anything in the middle of that. We're going to be creating content. So we appreciate the support.
Yeah. To quote Bain, this podcast was molded in the Banta era. So this shit is like nothing. So that's like this, like literally, like we've been doing this for like years. We appreciate all the support, truly. I know a lot has dropped off in terms of, even subscribers and people watching and viewing.
Yeah.
I get it. I don't even watch a lot of other Milan content creators. I don't even watch my own shit. I don't want to it's like pulling teeth to try and grab clips.
Talk about the same problems every week.
It's very redundant at a point, but we enjoy it because there's something finally positive to talk about. So again, we appreciate you guys so much. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to share the channel. Check out everything in the description of the video. We greatly and truly appreciate every single one of you that have been supporting us. And once again, Apple, Spotify, if you haven't already, follow Matt at Matt_Santangelo at AC Milan Bros. Follow us at That Milan Pod on Twitter, close to 1,000 followers on there. And again, at Martino_Puccio on Instagram. Same for That Milan Pod on Instagram and TikTok as well. We appreciate you guys so much and take care.